All right, what's up, New York? How is it going? I am Ross Vacatoro, bringing you guys the 59th episode of the Apples to Apples podcast. A little bit of a improvision here. Breaking news: Juan Soto signing a 15-year deal. I think it's $765 million, the biggest deal in MLB history. I think one of the biggest, if not the biggest deal in the history of sports, internationally, nationally, whatever. Juan Soto is a New York fucking Met for the next 15 years. And this is within the past hour, a little bit over an hour now. Pass and Heyman, everybody putting out the reports, everybody scrambling to get the latest news, the latest info on contract terms, negotiations, years, kind of like opt outs and all that. There's info coming in left and right. So I'm kind of going along with this as the info, hits the surface. Heyman passing everybody. I'm fucking at a loss for words. So bear with me here with the stutter and everything. I got 3 words to start this off. Holy fucking shit. Holy fucking shit. I got to start back. I got to go back to when Steve Cohen first bought this team, right? What was it? Late 2019, late 2019, 2020. I don't know the exact date. I can't even fucking think straight. when Steve Cohen bought this team 5-something years ago, the promise right out of the gates was not only what we endured with the Wilpons, the cheapskates, kind of the whole, these top of the list free agents not even being considered, let alone signing here, not even being in consideration, right? Guys like Yoenis Cespedes, and as good as he was here, and was a great bat with the Tigers, was just not even remotely close to the caliber of player. I mean, not many are, don't get me wrong, but Yoenis Cespedes was a great hitter. He was not an elite hitter. He was not a generational hitter. All right, Jay Bruce, what a fucking disaster that was. You go that Jet Larry, the whole joke about he had like 9 at bats here. He had 1 walk, and that was it. Obviously, Cano was part of adding on for the Diaz trade, and Diaz was kind of like a rarity at the time for the Wilpon era as well. And that was notoriously knocked for what they gave up for, as good as his stats were at the time, traditionally a closer, just a reliever giving up a top name in Jared Kelenic. But that was like an anomaly for the Wilpons. A fucking closing pitcher was an anomaly for Fred and Jeff Wilpon. And when Cohen took over, a lot of people, what's up, Dane? A lot of people, right off the bat, they said, this is the Lord and Savior. Shit's about to change right now, right here, right now. And depending on who you ask, some people might say it did change right then, right there, right there, right then. I wasn't one of those people. Even when they traded for Lindor, 3-4 months after he took over as owner. Remember the whole thing with Jared Porter, one of 4 GMs in the 5-something years Cohen's been owning the team, along with Mendy now being the 3rd manager in that 5-something year stint. Was one of my biggest knocks on Cohen. I said, don't matter how deep this guy's pockets are, this franchise will just eternally be just incompetent. We'll find a way to do everything wrong, and I'll find a way to take a guy as rich as Steve Cohen is, multi-billionaire. He'll still find a way to be a fucking cheapskate as recent as last year. And now I got to ease up on how I criticized last year's offseason, because in hindsight, they basically made every right move they could have made, to the point where you see guys like Severino a couple days ago, and I know I didn't make a podcast for that. There's a shit ton of other stuff that's going on in the city. The Rangers are such a fucking disgrace. I didn't even have, the energy to make an episode on them. That'll all collectively come on an episode later down the road. But this was groundbreaking. I'm going to have to email Sheldon. This was groundbreaking. 10:10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, December 8th, 2024, a Sunday night, a couple days into the month of December. This is a generational fucking night in Mets history, a generational night in MLB history, a generational night, honestly, in all of sports history. And look, we know what Ohtani was last year, two-way player, phenom, no one like him. Juan Soto was just a natural, your stereotypical hitter, an elite hitter at that, but he only, with Ohtani now in the league, he is just your traditional positional player. And the fact that he one-upped him on that tier list of highest paying contracts, longest, groundbreaking contracts, he is one of one. And the New York fucking Mets, of all people, are the reason why, is insane. Insane. This is the Steve Cohen we thought we were getting in 2019, 2020. Say what you want. I don't care. I know they brought in Lindor, but it was a couple more years of, kind of, I hate to use the word again, but bargain bin shopping and, bargain bin shopping. I hate to use the word, but that's kind of how I saw the entirety of last year's offseason. Like I said, I can't really knock it anymore. But when it got to the point where we were in this time last year, a couple months past it, and we were having to hear about guys like, Cooper Hummel, and there was a guy's name was fucking Andre Scrub or something. I remember this time last year I was laughing because the guy's name was fucking Scrub. And I said, it don't matter. Like I said, it don't matter how deep this guy's pockets are. Shit like this will never change. Just the comedic relief that comes with this franchise. Just some of it is just irreparable. It's just permanent. It's a permanent stain on the franchise. But this tonight, I truly believe this tonight, this signing I brought up 10-10 on December 8th, 2024 is the fucking Windex, the OxyClean, the Mr. Clean just wiped across the logo. That is the New York Mets. Reads Mets in that orange script across the fucking Triborough Bridge. Today marks the day the New York Mets are a newly born franchise. And I'm talking about a team that was in the NLCS last year. Right? The Lindor Grand Slam heard around the world. The Lindor 2-run shot in Atlanta. Nobody in the stands but heard around the nation. That 6-run inning, or however many runs, but that explosive inning that even made it a ball game. And then Diaz comes in, he gives you that little tease, said, holy shit, they're going to find a way to blow it again. There's these little sprinkled in teases of, the ghosts of Mets past. But I truly believe that tonight might be the ghost of Met present. And we're going to see and going to enjoy, very much so, enjoy the ghost of Met future. And just overall, you're looking at a guy where, look, Lindor is now, piece number 2. Or if you want to say 1A, 1B, but when this guy was brought in a couple years ago, he was the Messiah. He was the poster boy, of a changing of the guards here in Queens. And it was sour for a couple years. A lot of people came to his defense. A lot of people that regrettably, I called shills. I called a couple other things. I said, just because, he may be, refreshing compared to some of the other names. Like, obviously, he's a replacement for Ahmed Rosario. He's going to look good on the surface, but the money they paid him, and credit to Cohen, at the time, still crazy money compared to anybody the Mets had ever signed, even remotely in the recent history leading up to the Lindor sign and trade. But that was 2020. And aside from, going out getting Scherzer was part of that 4-day span where they wound up getting Marte Escobar and Mark Hanna as well. Like, there was that 3-day span in the 22 offseason or going into the 2022 season. That was oh shit, now this is finally, here's the Steve Cohen we were all waiting for. And then, they lose DeGrom, but they swap him with Verlander, obviously bring back Nimmo and Diaz, but you lose DeGrom. There's kind of that thing, but all right, but you bring back Verlander. We know how shitty 2023 was. And it might be revisionist history, but looking back at it, aside from Lindor, Cohen's only moves, his claim to fame, aside from Lindor, were 2 40-year-old fucking missionaries. That, like I said, revisionist history, but Scherzer, forget about it. His legacy is completely tarnished, and it's crazy to think that his 2022 regular season, ERA-wise, was the best he's ever had. We're talking about first ballot, the second his name, first name, last name, hits a ballot in Cooperstown, he's in. He's immortalized in the history of baseball. His best regular season, using a common stat, was as a late 30-year-old with the New York Mets. And nobody will remember that. And Justin Verlander he's not even Kevin Garnett on the Nets. He's not even Shaq on the Celtics. It's such a forgettable tenure. And that's where he got his 300th win, no less. Wound up being his last start as a man. He got traded a couple of days later. But, I mean, those were like the caveats to, all right, besides Lindor, what is a big name this multi-billion dollar owner has gone out and signed or even traded for? And, there's, guys like Escobar and Marte, and you even want to go back to last year. Last year, this is with Stearns, and my whole, or at least what I consider to be the selling point of Stearns was, if he could work his magic in a small market like Milwaukee, can you only imagine what he's going to do with the money that Steve Cohen owns? Last year, I didn't really see him go crazy and spend any of that money. And now now it's looking really obvious that it was for the better, right? Kind of like that 2022 approach where Cohen said, fuck it, I have the money. I'm just going to go balls to the wall and go grab the top names I want on this team, basically like a franchise mode. And last year they kind of took a step back. I thought was, at the time they were being run like a AAA team or a small market team like Oakland or even Milwaukee where Stearns came from. And I said, holy shit, we got sold a bill of goods. The fact that Sean Manaea was coming off being he was being a reliever. He was being used as a reliever. That's how bad he was in San Diego and San Francisco. Severino couldn't get, through the second inning without being booed off the mound for a team he spent the entirety of his career with, the first couple of years in which he was one of the best pitchers in the league. You go down the line, Jose Iglesias was semi-retired. I remember when he got signed. And Adam, I don't know, man. I don't know. Pete, I wanted Santander thinking we weren't getting Soto, but I don't know. I want Winker back, obviously. I don't know if there's room for him. There is room for him, obviously. I don't know. Because I thought now I don't know. They might go out, get fucking Burns and Alonso. I don't know. This tonight officially makes me expect the unexpected with this team. Is that just talking about? All right. I remember when Iglesias got signed, kind of that name recognition, and it was kind of like a flashback moment, like, holy shit, where was this guy the past year? Turns out he didn't play a single pitch, and not only in the MLB at all, because he was 2 feet out the door. Forget 1 foot out the door. He had a shit stint with Boston. Obviously, his days to remember were in Detroit. He had that all-star year. He was a serviceable shortstop for multiple years. Great fielder, great contact hitter, and just completely fizzled out. And, I saw the name. I was like, where do we go from here? And the original plan was, this is a guy who got beat out by Brett Beatty and Joey Wendell. There's a name to remember, Joey Wendell. Zach Short. As great as the my bad, man. I appreciate it. I'm doing a podcast right now, so I'm not accepting people up, but I appreciate it, man. If you want to leave any comments, I'll try to read them up, but I'm recording a podcast, but I appreciate it, man. With Iglesias, the name recognition was there, but I then realized why I hadn't seen his name in so long, and that's because he was done. He was done with the sport. And, as great as some of these names like Iglesias and Manaea and Severino are to look back on, there's the names that didn't work out. Joey Wendell, Zach Short, Adrian Hauser, Jake Diekman. You go down the line. Some of the guys that did not reach the end, they didn't reach the finish line of this eventual NLCS appearing team. And that's another thing I got to credit Stearns and Cohen for, was how quick they were to cut cut ties with the dead weight. Showalter, Sandy Alderson's still here. How many times we see Daniel fucking Vogelback's fat ass trying to turn 2 on a on a ball deep in the left field gap and just plop? I mean, how many times it was a running joke? He almost felt bad for the guy, but he was unplayable. It felt like sometimes he brought the jokes on him. You had to feel bad for the guy, but there was no defending it. And he was, not only was he still on the team, he was batting 5th on most nights. Late August, early September, you had Rafael Ortega, Jonathan Arauz, Danny Mendick. These were guys batting low on the historically bad Chicago White Sox lineup. We're playing legitimate, top of the order at-bats for a team where now 2 years later, not only you reach the NLCS, you got Lindor's what you paid him every last cent for when you traded for him in 2020, and now you bring in a guy who's going to make $51 million fucking dollars a year, more than any, I'm pretty sure, athlete in the world, definitely baseball player. And if you look at it, the offer with the whole thing with the Yankees was that he was going to go the highest bidder. The Mets only offered him $5 million more a year. AAV wise, he was offered like $47 million. Was the final offer that Steinbrenner and Cash would put on the table. So it was nothing, close to night and day. This just essentially looks like this motherfucker wanted to be a New York Met. And I can't remember the last time any person said that, let alone the potential face of a generation of the sport. And I think tonight, I brought it up before, it's great that they made the NLCS last year. That we had that magical run where a lot of people, myself included, hand to my chest, hand to my heart, I cannot take credit for calling them making the playoffs, making it as a wild card, winning the wild card round against Milwaukee, beating Philly in the NLDS, forget about it, and even taking the Dodgers to 6 games. And that's going to sound like loser talk, but that Dodger team going, the way they ran through the Yankees, and I know the losses were blowouts. This team could have easily faded. Like they did in 2015, taking KC to 5. And I know game 1, obviously, the rest was history. But hell, I didn't have them playing relevant baseball in June, July. I thought this season was done in May. And now that was just the appetizer. That was just the fucking trailer. This is the movie. This might be the preview ads, because I don't even know what's next. This officially tonight, as pessimistic of a fan as you'll see, as I'll believe it when I see it of a fan as you'll see. I can't even believe it, as John Heyman would say on WFAN. I really can't fucking believe it. I cannot believe it. I was so hell-bent on him staying in the Bronx. I saw a guy that every time he walked out of the dugout, picked up a bat, threw a helmet on, and walked into that batter's box, smiling ear to ear with arguably the other best hitter in the league. And you could argue Ohtani, but no doubt top 3 hitters in the league, 2 of which are in the same lineup. Every fucking time the guy picked up a bat, threw on a glove, he was smiling. I said, this guy is built to be a Yankee for life. And then there was even the rumor about him being a Red Sox, like growing up. What's up, Jack? I see in the chat. What's up, man? I can't fucking believe it. I'm recording an episode, but edit this out. I can't fucking believe it, man. Unfucking believable. As I was saying, Red Sox. And then there was a report that, him growing up kind of in you know what I'm doing a Ranger episode next. I didn't even do a Trouble episode. Living the life. Yeah, hell yeah, man. I didn't have the energy to do a Ranger episode. They're fucking kicked to the curb for now. I got to do one of those, but yeah, Trouba, Shesty kind of threw a damper on it. I don't know what do you think of the Shesty deal, but Trouba off this team, no doubt. And then this is just the fucking kicker. This is Cloud 9, man. So Jack, I see you want to keep commenting, but I got to get back to the episode. But hell yeah, man, let's keep it going. Even there was that report of Soto growing up in the DR, and there was like this article that said he didn't really grow up in the best of neighborhoods, so he was really kept in his house more often than not, and he would find ways to entertain himself. And he like throw like a crumpled up piece of paper, like a hacky sack at the wall, and he like the most simple stuff, and he'd pretend he was Big Poppy, and Manny Ramirez was like all he did in the DR. Like those were his idols. And that kind of scared me a little bit because I said, all right, I still think it's all about the money for him. Highest offer on the table is where he's going, but there could be some sentimental value to Boston as well because you don't typically see them in these high value kind of bidding exchanges. So that was kind of in the back of my mind, but I still thought he was a Yankee. I never thought he would actually come to Queens. Never thought it. Never thought it. Because even last year too with Yamamoto, there was a thing too with Yankee fans like Yamamoto 2024 with the whole campaign and all that. Soto gets traded obviously to the Yankees, and Yamamoto is the dragged out, bidding exchange. In last year's version of our, if it's not Yamamoto, who else? This year it was Soto. And obviously we don't get Yamamoto. Same offer, he goes to the Dodgers. A lot of people say, at some point, as much money as you put on the table, maybe he just didn't want to be a Met. And I think that's kind of true with a lot of the Japanese players like staying out on the West Coast because of how close they are to home. You obviously see Ohtani stay local. It was the guy Matsui on the Padres, and it's basically a foregone conclusion that Sasaki's going to the Dodgers as well. So there were some people saying, well, maybe he just never wanted to be a Met at all, and he just used this for leverage. And I was just thinking to myself, well, if we hear that about Soto too, that he just didn't want to be a Met. I was just thinking to myself, at what point does that caveat, that excuse become old? And even this time last year too, I was thinking, well, at the same time, as prosperous as the Dodgers are, yeah, they don't win their titles. And, how funny is that, a year later, they have rings on their fingers. But, at the time, aside from that Mickey Mouse COVID title, they were notorious for winning triple-digit total of wins, and coming up short more often than not in the DS. I mean, these past 2 years, going down to inferior divisional opponents, and you're just thinking to yourself, I mean, at what point do the Dodgers get over the hump? But you got to give them credit. Every year they were a dog in the fight, whereas the Mets felt like they were getting to that status and just completely crashed and fell flat on their face last year. And to that point, I just said to myself, well, at the same time, who is going to want to join this fucking dumpster fire of a situation? Fast forward a year later, we're the prosperous team. We got the owner we thought we were getting confirmed. Don't matter who you ask. There may be some people, and I can't tell them not to because of how, hell-bent I was to die on the hill of Cohen selling us a bill of goods. Tonight, move the needle officially. It's going to take a hell of a lot for me to ever say another bad word about Steve Cohen ever again. Ever again. It takes a lot, and this is still with the winter meetings going on, right? You look at a team last year that, say what you want, how successful the year it was, and how, another name that I bring up was JD Martinez, and I got on him for saying how long it took to bring in a guy who I saw no risk in bringing in. Late 30s guy as a DH. He is not going to be part of the future whatsoever. As good as he could be, he was great for the first couple months. Last couple months, postseason, total disaster. No doubt about it, total disaster. But the first couple months, he was a producer, and I genuinely believe as valuable as Lindor and Nimmo were as leaders in the clubhouse, I do not think the season turns around without JD Martinez. The walk-off against Miami and leading that players-only meeting, I think JD Martinez had a huge role, if not led the way in both, definitely the walk-off, but the meeting as well. I think Martinez had a huge role in that, and I don't think the season turns around without him. So that was kind of the no. And look, you You pat him on the back. You say thank you for your services. You move on. And now that was when we didn't even know Mark Vientos would turn into the franchise leader for RBIs in a single postseason. And that's not even counting all the highlight reel moments he had throughout the year. The stats, Mark Vientos is the first of the 4 baby Mets. Alvarez, Beatty, Mauricio Vientos was the first one, in my opinion, to establish himself as an everyday MLB player. We saw a lot to like out of Mauricio, but it was 2 weeks, albeit. Alvarez, rocky here and there. He's an MLB player. He is not what he once was hyped up to be, and that is the best player in all of MLB. And Beatty's just flat out shit. And I think the bill's out on him. But Vientos established himself last year. So now you have him either at the hot corner, at DH, at first base. There's still such a big question mark looming over his situation. But one thing's for sure is that you have his bat, you have his established bat that you're going to add to a mix of now Lindor and Soto, which might be the biggest 1-2 punch, the best 1-2 punch in the league. You could still I'd still probably put the Dodgers over him just because of last year. And you mix and match however you want, 1, 2, 3. I think that's why I'd put them above, just because of how flexible it is. Obviously, Ohtani, 50-50 type bat. Betts is a 5-tool as well, and Freeman's probably the best natural hitter in the sport, in my opinion. Could also be Juan Soto as well. And if it's not if it's not the best, it's still one of the best. And I always said about Juan Soto, he is the age of a prospect with the resume of a Hall of Famer. While 26 is really not the age of a prospect anymore, it's still really damn young for a guy who's, I think, depending on who you ask, but a lot of people would agree, a guy who, if he retired tomorrow, may not be first ballot, but a lot of people would vote for Juan Soto to make it to the Hall of Fame. If he retired today, if he cashed out today, he said, I'm set for life. He is not a lock, but he has a really damn good case to make the Hall of Fame, and he is 26 years old. He won a World Series at 19 years old. He wasn't allowed to drink. He wasn't allowed to hit the champagne in the clubhouse when they won the whole damn thing. And he was a prominent part of it. He wasn't some just, go-to pinch hitter riding the bench 158 times of the year. They don't win that World Series without him, and he was 19 years old. He goes to San Diego. Doesn't work out, but it's not like the stats dipped. And last year, the Yankees do not win that pennant without him. I mean, you got that homer heard around the world to beat Cleveland last year. Dead center, 3-run shot. Might be a little tainted now with the Yankee faithful, but as far as highlight reel footage that'll last at the end of time, that was one of many moments he had in the Bronx. And I remember 2 years ago, there was I think it was an Apple TV game. I don't know why I remember that. Soto was here 2 years ago now with the Padres, came to New York, Yankee Stadium. He had such a crisp homer to the porch. And I think Yankee fans had like an epiphany when that happened. And they said, wow, there's the legitimate shot that we're going to get this guy. And a year later, they did. And a lot of times did they see that just smooth swing, the Soto shuffle, just how clean his overall approach is. I'm going to sound like I'm glazing, but I mean, it's like the nature that comes with him. Because if we're being honest, like we're really being honest, playing devil's advocate, he's not a great fielder and he's not the fastest guy by any stretch. So what is the big appeal with him? And he's just might be the smartest hitter I've ever seen in my life. I mean, if you get this guy chasing on a pitch outside of the zone, you might as well just throw a fucking trophy on a shelf right then and there. Got one of the best approaches I've ever seen. His swing is unbelievable. And I'm not even a big kind of analytics kind of mechanics type guy. I mean, I feel like a lot of that shit is nitpicked and sought out. But with him, I don't think it's the case. I think you could get the average MLB fan would still be able to notice to differentiate his approach with your ordinary MLB player. And, I think that's why he's so established, so elite, so generational, despite not being a 5-tool player, not being a 4-tool player. He's got the contact and the power. That's about it. He's a good fielder. I'm not trying to talk him up to be like Nelson Cruz with a fucking glove on, but he's got a good arm. But he's not a 5-tool player. He's not a Mookie Betts 5-tool player. He's not. Hell, Lindor's a 5-tool player, and yet he's still gonna get $51 million fucking dollars a year. He's got the ring. He's got the World Series experience, and just to put it in perspective, Francisco Lindor feels like he's been playing. It doesn't feel like he's been playing that long, and he's 31 years old. He's got five years the senior of someone who's already surpassed him as a generational talent, and that's no knock on Lindor. Finished second in MVP to a guy who put up the first ever 50-50 season in MLB history and almost pitched. So, I don't want this to go too long because it is midnight on a school night for me. But I'm gonna summarize it like this so I could put this on the Instagram because I really gotta get on that on the social engagement. Tonight, move the needle for me. Tonight is where I put my foot down and say I'm joining the pack of what I called the Cohen shills. For every time I went on Twitter and called him Steve Wilpon, for every time I called him a cheapskate, a dumpster diver, a Goodwill shopper, Stearns as well. I just overall, and everyone part of the Cohen administration, multiple. And I'm not even saying that as a knock because you asked me about a month ago, I would have used that as a knock. Not anymore. Tonight, 10 p.m. on December 8th of 2024. 10 p.m. on December 8th of 2024, I truly believe is where we saw the end of the ghost of New York Met past and the segue to the ghost of New York Met present and beyond. I feel like this is just the wiping and the bringing of a fresh slate, considering last year they went on that magical run, the NLCS, all that. I think now that's essentially a teaser, like a preview to what this franchise could become. It's, years down the road. Any LOL Mets, same old Mets, all that. There may be glimpses of it, but tonight, right here, a couple hours ago, when Juan Soto put pen to paper and signed a 15-year deal where he's now going to be paid $51 million, cross the Triborough Bridge, going from the Bronx to Queens, not being your pinch hitter or your setup man, kind of like Clay Holmes and last year, Luis Severino and Harrison Bader, and just names years and years in recent memory. We're finally getting the prominent player to go the other way on the Triborough Bridge. And it's not your average elite player. It's a generational player. It's the poster boy of a generation, a name that kids are going to grow up looking up to. And a guy who essentially is borderline a kid himself. Like I say, he's 26 years old. He's no teenager like he was when he won that ring with the Nats, but this guy is in his mid-20s, and he is already the face of a generation. And he's going to spend the rest of that career, that generational elite career, is going to be spent in the orange and blue. And that is fucking incredible. Fucking incredible to think about. So, Steve Cohen, if you're listening to this, you're watching this on YouTube, I highly doubt you are. I apologize. I waited for the day. I apologize. I gave you like a half-ass apology last year. I gave Mendoza and Stearns the full-on apologies last year, and I kind of hesitated a little bit because I said I want to see him go out, get that big name. As great as the Manayas and the Iglesiases and the J.D. Martinez's were of last year, I brought up for every one of those was a Joey Wendell and a Zach Short. I said I want to see him go out, get that big fucking name next year, and I'll throw him in the bunch. He'll be like Anakin Skywalker at the end of Return of the Jedi. You got the two holograms, and then Skywalker comes in. He's the third. I'm no Star Wars nerd, but that like visual always clicked with me. Having the two pre-existing, figures and the third one coming in, whatever, I'm rambling. I apologize to Stearns last year. I apologize to Mendoza last year. I waited on Cohen, but Steve Cohen, I am sitting here right now, 12-12 on the early minutes of December 9th. I apologize. I apologize for doubting you, even if I could still think some of it may be warranted at the time. I'm brushing it under the rug. I'm willing to give you a fresh slate because tonight you drew the line in the sand between the old Mets of Christmas past, the jokes, the searching for a bargain, and the lack of aggressiveness in the free agent market. Even the first couple of years where I thought you were one and the same. Steve Cohen tonight, 10 p.m. on December 8th, 2024. You convinced me that you are not the long-lost Wilpon and Steve Cohen once again. I apologize, but I'm gonna cap it off there. But once again, Steve Cohen is Juan Soto is a New York fucking Met, and it's unbelievable. It's incredible, and I'm hoping this is just only the beginning. Only the beginning. Relax. This is like the 45-year buffer between getting out of the hellhole. And it looked like 2022 we came up to the surface, and 2023 dug ourselves even deeper. And it looked like it was irreparable. And now you got to think 21, 22, 23, 24. This is year 5. This is year 5, Steve. And I know you have that clip. Cue that clip up on socials. Cue that clip. A year, you want a ring in 5 years. Steve Cohen, I said in year 3, it's year 3 of 5. And I said, this is only the start of how miserable, how incompetent this franchise is going to be. You turned it around in year 4. I believe year 4 was the trailer. Steve Cohen, David Stearns, Carlos Mendoza. Show us Met fans that year 5 is the movie we've all been waiting for. Show us that year 5. We waited it out. Good things come to those who wait. And that 5-year promise, that ring is going to come in the 5th year of that 5-year promise. Steve Cohen, once again, I apologize. Juan Soto, welcome to fucking Queens, baby. Holy shit. Holy shit. I think I started off with holy fucking shit. So let's end it off with a holy fucking shit. Juan Soto is a New York Met. And yeah, that's where I'm going to leave it there. I'm truly going to call it there. So thank you guys for listening. Kind of like an emergency podcast, but a generational night that we will look back on forever. I truly believe we'll look back on forever. And for, me and anybody, any other fan with future wives and kids, even grandkids, you look back when, me being an old man, if I got grandkids, they'll say, son, you had to be alive for December 8th, 2024. Because that was the day the New York Mets became a son, you had to be alive for December 8th, 2024, because that was the day the New York Mets became a serious franchise. And let's just hope it's only the beginning of some even more magical stuff. But with that being said, thank you guys for listening. Follow the socials. I'll post this on YouTube as well as Spotify, all the usuals. And with that said, I'm Russ Fagatura. I'm out. See you guys on the next episode.